Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Gizmo China and I'm Nadine. So in the last video review, we actually looked at the Realme X50 5G. But in this video, we're going to compare these two models. So we brought back its twin model, the Redmi K30 5G. They almost copied each other in all the important features such as the 5G network, the 120Hz display, the 4-camera combination, including the 64 megapixel primary camera, the dual camera hole punch face, the Snapdragon 765 SoC, and so on. So according to all these features, the results must be very similar in comparison. So as we imagine, these two phones must be very close. So how exactly do they perform? That's what we're going to find out. Firstly, let's look at their appearance. Their hole punch cameras look really similar to each other, and the 6.57-inch displays are exactly the same. And they both equip a side fingerprint reader, which is also the power button. There is nothing different between their design, which even shares the same touching reaction. But speaking of their buttons, the both side button arrangement of the Realme is more user-friendly. Both the phones are pretty heavy and large-sized, which can cause users considerable discomfort after using it for a while. About the price, although the cheapest version of 6 plus 64 gigabytes only claims to be about $290 US, the Realme X50 5G starts from an 8 plus 128 gigabytes. It only costs around $363 US, which is even cheaper than the same storage version of the Redmi K30 5G. Last year, we've seen some very powerful mid-range CPU in the market, such as the Snapdragon 730G, the Kirin 810, and the MTK G90T. Their performance is pretty close to each other, so it's hard to say which one is the best mid-ranger. But it seems that the Snapdragon 765G is going to dominate the mid-range market with its 5G connectivity, more powerful CPU, and GPU as well. Accordingly, there is no doubt that at this moment, the Realme X50 5G and the Redmi K30 5G are the mid-range phones with the best performance in the market. In Geekbench, they both scored 622 in the single-core test, while the Realme model seems to be a bit better in its multiple-core performance, which theoretically leads to a better system performance for multitask running. In Antutu benchmark, we got the same result. The Realme model still led in the race of the multi-core test. But no matter the K30 5G or the X50 5G, their performance has already been better than the smartphones equipping the Snapdragon 845. Meanwhile, during the test, the heated problem isn't that serious, especially for the Realme model. It only rose by 3.5 degrees Celsius. And then we test their game performance. In PUBG Mobile, they both can reach an average frame rate of 59 frames per second after unlock and graphics limitation, and it should be able to break through the frame rate up to 120 frames per second in PUBG Mobile. So we did test the result after we unlocked the 120 frames per second mode through a third-party tool. It's totally different from the experience that we play the game under a 60 frame rate. It's completely about the smooth graphics and fast response. That's exactly the eSport mode that we're thinking on a smartphone. Let's look at their camera performance. The Realme X50 5G equips a 64 megapixel primary camera, an 8 megapixel wide-angle camera, a 12 megapixel 2x optical telephoto camera, and another macro camera. For the Redmi K30 5G, the rear setup is a 64 megapixel Sony IMX686 camera, an 8 megapixel wide-angle camera, a 2 cm focus macro camera, and a 2 megapixel portrait camera. In harsh contrast situations, with the exception of purple fringing, both the cameras performed pretty well on detail and color reproduction. Sometimes the resolution of the X50 5G is a bit unstable. For example, in this sample, the brand mark on the motorcycle is a bit unclear, while the K30 5G's sample has higher contrast and better detail. As for their wide-angle camera, the sample shot by the K30 did not solve the noise problem of darkness. On the other hand, the good message here is that it had better detail reproduction, but for the color, it's obvious that the Realme's sample has higher saturation. About their telephoto performance, as we mentioned in our K30 review video, there is no telephoto camera on the K30 5G either. So it's not surprising that the X50 5G has better telephoto performance. And then we tested their 64 megapixel resolution mode. While the samples were pretty close, it's very hard to tell what the differences are between them. If you have to compare them, it seems that the Redmi reached a bit of a better resolution. And under night conditions, they both performed well on improving their image brightness, but the darkness transition seems to be more natural on the Redmi sample. And sometimes the Realme sample had more obvious glare of strong light sources, which would probably destroy your pictures. Even though, under most night conditions, the exposure balance was under great control in both machines. Some of you are probably worrying about the battery life because of their excellent performance. That also causes high power consumption. But the solutions for these two models are very similar. They both equip large batteries and support 30 watts fast charging. For the Realme X50 5G, the 4200 mAh battery can be fully charged within 1 hour, while the 4500 mAh battery of Redmi K30 5G would also be about 1 hour. So that's what we think is important to tell you about these two models. Indeed, they're very similar to each other. They have exactly the same amount of advantages and shortages, though it's hard to say which one is the better choice. So how about you just consider the software and the appearance? So if you like the MIUI better, just go for the K30 5G. If you just prefer the design of the Realme, then just take the X50 5G. It's never really going to be a wrong choice between them, let's just say. But that's all for our video today. So we hope that you did enjoy it. We hope that we covered what you would like to know. If there's anything that you would still like to know, just drop it in the comments below. We'll be sure to get back to you and give you our opinions, comments, what you like. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And we hope to see you in the next video. I'm Nadine and this is Gizmo China.